The beauty of hopes and dreams in anime. Hope is for people that have lost and people that are losing. They desire to get something back or get something that they've never had, and it starts as something insignificant, usually a simple reflection. If that person can do it, then what's stopping me from doing the same? And that arbitrary thought is then enhanced with the engine that is the human imagination. What places will I go to get there? What people will I meet on the way? What ideas will I have that make me successful? What kind of obstacles will I encounter? And then this aspiration is so thrilling that it becomes ambitious. It becomes a dream. Those thoughts become actions. People train, people learn, people adapt to see their imaginations become reality. And then their determination becomes contagious, infecting surrounding people to hope for something similar. Rebellions protest, awareness discerns, prosperity dispenses, and then the person can look back at what their perseverance has contributed to their community and their own endeavors. Their hopes have transformed from a state of inadequacy to a state of abundance, and this new being can produce more hopes, more dreams than before. And emerging from that feeling of being overwhelmed with opportunity is humility. You thank yourself for that tiny insignificant idea you had however many years ago. Hopes and dreams take courage, investment, and time, but they are perhaps the most beautiful part of life, because they are rare, because it takes one stubborn individual to hatch up such a tremendous scheme. They're beautiful because they inspire people, because they awaken those feelings that sit dormant in most people, the desire for adventure, for competition, for exploration. They're beautiful because they remind those of us who gave up that it's still possible, and it reminds those that are still going that it's just on the other side. Those positive feelings are so innocent and exhilarating that anyone who feels them has no other words to say than, with a tear running down their cheek, "This shit beautiful, dog." So what is hope and what are dreams? There's a saying that says, you never know what you have until you lose it. And similarly, you never know what you're lacking until you have it. That's exactly why hopes and dreams exist. The question of what if? What if I had that car? What if I had that amount of money? What if I had that social ranking? These things would change my life if I had them. People would like me more. Better opportunities would present themselves to me. Life in general would be more comfortable. These smaller scale objectives, so to speak, are hopes. They are measurable, relatively difficult to do, relatively easy to imagine. You can look at your neighbor, you can look at your peers, you can look at your phone and be bombarded with the things you don't have. And these hopes will make you hungry. They make you say, I could really have that if I just put some effort into it. But dreams are an entirely different can of worms. They still begin with the question of what if, but they prolong themselves as something much more taxing. What if I saw the bright lights? What if I left the planet and saw the stars? What if I invented something that changed the world? These things would change many people's lives. It might even change history. I could be people's hero. My influence could extend into nations. My life would be marvelous. That's a dream, an extremely lofty ambition that is so gigantic that you yourself cannot even imagine it. When I see professional athletes get asked the question of, did you know you were going to make it to the big leagues? A lot of the time I see them say something along the lines of, yeah, I really wanted to, but I didn't actually think I could do it. And what I believe they mean by this is that they believe in themselves to outcompete their rivals. But their imagination couldn't possibly fathom how incredible and life-changing achieving their dream would be, because it was such a difficult thing to do. Dreams don't just make you hungry, they make you obsessed, impulsive, and sometimes a little crazy. But that's what hopes and dreams do to people. They allow us to transcend our current selves with the power of our imagination. So how do characters use hope? Wishes are ideas without actions. Hopes are ideas that inquire actions. A sentence you might hear is, I hope to buy a house someday. This implies that this person not only has a relative amount of faith that this event will take place, but it also implies that they are going to make strides to obtain said house. You never hear people say, I wish to buy a house someday, because it does not imply that they have any faith or motivation to make that thing happen. That's why the term wishful thinking exists. It's thinking about things you desire but not actually doing anything about it. Why am I making this distinction? Because it needs to be made known that hopes are not just wishful thinking. They require a certain level of discipline and commitment, and that is the very reason why hopeful characters are idolized. They use hope in a way that inspires. By seeing someone not give up and remain steadfast in their faith, it makes you want to stand with them. Characters use hope in a variety of ways. Sometimes they give hope to other people. All Might is the symbol of peace. His existence means that when there is chaos, when there are people in danger, when there are villains out destroying society, he is there to maintain the balance. And people can place their faith in this hero because he has proven time and time again that he will protect people, and will stop evildoers when they appear. His commitment and discipline to this vocation is what gives people hope. It gives them a sense of security in their everyday life. It gives them someone to call out to in their time of need, but sometimes people use hope for themselves. We all know Naruto's story. Everyone in the village hates him. He's poor, and he's an orphan. When a character has so much adversity, they cannot place their hopes in other people, because other people have always let them down. They must place their hope in themselves, and that's exactly how Naruto's dream began. He derived this ambition from the neglect and poor treatment he received as a child. One day everyone will stop judging and disrespecting me, because I'll be the greatest Hokage, a ninja legend. And Naruto was able to accomplish his dream with his hopes and determination, and everyone did begin to respect him. Hopes can change people's minds. They can even change people's actions. So how does that hope change narratives? When a person follows their desires, their hopes and dreams, they also change, because their final destination demands them to. I've talked about Simon the Digger before, particularly how his unfortunate circumstances changed his moral foundation. But his hope is something to behold, because the narrative around Simon the Digger for the first half of Gurren Lagann is this inexperienced member of the team that's held back by his fears and self-doubts. But the narrative around Simon at the end is this courageous, ever-persistent leader that basically defeats the power of the universe. How can someone make such a drastic change? I believe it has to do with the goal Simon set out for himself at the beginning of the story. The goal is to free humanity from oppression, and with the anti-spiral being the apex of that oppression, it would mean that Simon would have to obtain a similar standing of power. And Simon eventually did reach that standing of ability, but the narrative around Simon didn't change when he reached the power of being able to rival the anti-spiral. It changed somewhat earlier. A few episodes after the death of Kamina, Simon begins to believe in himself and his dream. That's when the narrative around Simon changed, and that's how hopes can change narratives around characters. The dream of freeing humanity from oppression meant that Simon had to become an entirely different person, and once he had the hope in himself to do so, the narrative switched from timid and full of doubt to brave and powerful. So how does that hope end? Hopelessness happens either when the adversity is too great or when there is no need for hope. People that are content with their lives usually don't have very large ambitions, because there's not much more for them to want. That's part of why I say hope is for the people that are losing and that have lost, because you need to be in a state of deprivation in order to desire a state of affluence. And adversity does a great job of putting people in those depriving, lackluster situations. And anime characters are great examples of how to deal with hopelessness. Sometimes they get discouraged. Takamura couldn't make weight for his next title fight no matter what practices he used. Cardio, fasting, sucking on dried mushrooms, none of it worked. He began to lose his mind. This was beyond discouraging, but at this low level, what does this character do? He endures. He does more of the very thing that's driving him crazy. Sometimes they lose. Roy Mustang loses his best friend, the man that saved him from giving up on his own life, that aided in his dream of becoming Führer and changing a government ruled by death and secrecy to one that is honest and generous. What does this character do? He finds the bitch that slimed his homeboy and burns her ass to a crisp. Then he finds her homeboy and switches him down. Sometimes they give up. Vash's entire goal throughout his story is to save people's lives, and that no matter how drastic a scenario may be, nobody has to die. And then he kills someone, and he gives up, retires from the chase of his brother. But even when he's made up his mind, he still believes in something, in justice, in good. And while metaphorically he may not be the perfect tool for the job, he's the only tool for the job. Even though he's done the very thing that he fights to destroy, even though he's given up, he's the only thing that can stop his brother. So he gets back on his feet. These characters continue to believe in something. They put their hope in something, because hope is for people who have nothing else to believe in. Hope is an idea that is meaningless outside of a person's imagination, but if you give up hope, you are certain to lose. Hope is what stands between loss and victory. How much do you believe in that idea? What if? So what makes those hopes and dreams special? What's the secret sauce that changes someone's vision from corny and immature to imaginative and revolutionary? It's what you do with what you've got. These characters were tested, and sometimes they gave up, but they managed to light the fire again. People's dreams have no end. Even if at one point a character struggles or loses, they can always try again. And when these characters are confronted with difficulty or loss, and they decided to keep going, it gives their message a little more oomph. It means that someone out there is fighting really hard for an idea. While it may be just one person, and rather small at that point in time, it still has power behind it because that single person is overcoming things to achieve it. Slowly but surely growing a dream from just an idea to a movement, product, or ability in present time. The way someone's vision becomes corny and immature is if they give up at the slightest inconvenience, if they celebrate without having achieved anything, or if they blame others for their shortcomings. The special sauce is the action in front of the idea. The truth is, ideas are easy, even comforting at times. It's pleasant to imagine yourself doing something you love for the rest of your life, or having an incredible physique, or going out with that boy or girl you have a crush on. But it's really hard to do something you love consistently and see no progress whatsoever. It's really hard to work out every day and diet and still have a mid-physique. And it's really fucking hard to muster up the courage to ask someone out on a date. A dream is special because it's hard to do. And for that matter, even though smaller in scale, hopes are the same way. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was really spittin' when it said, to gain something of equal value must be lost or sacrificed. That's precisely why big dreamers are uncommon. People don't like risk, people don't like loss. There's comfort in familiarity and fear in the unknown. Even though I believe imagining things is easy and action is where dreams live or die, inspiration is still important. Watching characters navigate their tribulations gives people hope that their ideas are not impossible. Watching characters use their imagination spurs other people to create. Inspiration is a cycle of creativity passed from one person to the next. But talk is cheap, and even if that person's creation reaches a large audience, inspiring many, only a few will put action behind their newly found inspiration. What if that's also okay? What if it only takes one person to make something beautiful? What if that person was me or you? Anime has countless examples of characters with large aspirations, and maybe I chose some questionable examples for hopes and dreams, but you don't need me to tell you how to understand the message of chasing your dreams. You've heard it countless times in the very shows you hold closest to your heart. These are beautiful creations, filled with wonder, filled with the supernatural, filled with amazing powers, filled with vast landscapes, filled with triumphant and tragic stories alike. Each of them gives you a new blueprint to start something of your very own. Every one of these characters has a story to tell, and I don't believe it's coincidental that most of these characters have lofty ambitions. So, I suppose there's only one question left you have to ask yourself, and my only advice is to not limit yourself. Use anything and everything your imagination can conjure. Ask yourself the question, what if that was me?